In today's session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Scott Oldford about believing your own hype and how you should never ever do it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to session 56 of the Purple Coffee Podcast. A podcast all about inspiring stories from some of the world's finest. I'm your host, Turndog, and on this occasion I speak to Scott Oldford, who's a bit of a master when it comes to marketing and networking and building an awesome communication. Sometimes you meet a person who's just that natural entrepreneur, the go-getting, they turn good ideas into great practice, and Scott's a fantastic inspiration for someone like me. Quite frankly, he's not just a talker and a thinker, but a true doer, and the world needs more doers after all. But this is all in aid of Scott's great mistake, which, as you can imagine, is for my book, The Successful Mistake. And it began years and years ago when Scott was a mere teen. He found a great deal of success at a young age doing programming and computer expertise stuff, things which are, beyond my head and then some. But he built a very big platform. He did it all online, and he started making money and getting a bit of a reputation at a time when most of us are still trying to figure out and pluck up the courage to speak to a girl. So Scott was building a life well before his time, and I suppose it led him on a dangerous journey because he began to believe his own hype. He started to slip into debt because he didn't have a true understanding of the importance of money and the role it plays in your life, and it led to him ultimately in $750,000 worth of personal debt, which is a lot of money. But at the time, I suppose Scott didn't just appreciate how important or how sort of drastic it could be. It's a really important story because whether you come across this new success at a young age or shortly into your entrepreneurial journey or some down the line, it's dangerous, super dangerous to ever believe your own hype. You need to stay humble, you need to stay on the right path and keep your eyes on the all-important prize. What that prize is, well, that is dependent on who you are and the kind of lifestyle you wish, but that prize is super important. So I'm going to stop talking now, let you get straight into Scott's wise words. But before I do, I've just got a quick bio to share with you so you can learn a little bit more about Scott and his funky funk ways. So here we go. What can I say about Scott Oldford other than he's one energetic superhero with more oomph than a jet plane? Swooping and twirling, Scott splits his time between clients, writing, speaking, podcasting, webinaring, blogging, helping, communicating, sharing. I imagine forging the art of sleeping most nights. He may be Doctor Who or some other time-travelling overlord. It's difficult to explain how he fits so much into 24 hours. So in order to make myself feel better about myself and a lot less lazy, I take the time-travelling overlord route instead. Ready to feel like you don't fit enough into your day? Good, you've come to the right place. Scott is about to wow you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining me. I have with me this evening the wonderful Scott Oldford, who is the marketing and strategy guy at Infinitus, a very cool marketing company with also a very insanely cool podcast called the Limitless Business Podcast. They've interviewed and connected with some amazing people, so I encourage you to check that out. And Scott also has a podcast of his own called The Executive Minute, and likewise lots of great interviews, lots of great advice. So Scott, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Certainly. Absolutely looking forward to this.
Oh, I am excited. Scott is joining us from old Canada. He thought I was from Canada too, although I'm from the original Halifax over in chilly old England. So you've learned something new already, Scott.
Too funny, too funny. Yeah, I guess that is the original Halifax.
It's like everyone goes on about New York, but man, we have the old York. So
that is so true.
No one ever cares about the old New York. Although my second
No.
novel was set there, so I suppose I
don't know why people. I was in New York last week. I don't really know why people are so big on New York. I kind of hate the place. I wasn't a huge fan by any stretch of imagination. No, because I don't know. Maybe it's just, yeah. Well, it's not even that. I don't know. It's just it's marketed extremely well. I can guarantee you that because
Oh,
of course, everybody and their dog wants to go there, and you get there, and you're like, why does anyone want to come here? So, but anyways, I doubt what we want to talk about is how much I hate New York.
well, I mean, that could be another conversation for another time. But right now, it's all about Scott's great mistake, and those regular viewers and listeners will know it's for the book I'm writing, The Success Mistake. All about an entrepreneur's grand faux pas and how they switch-rooted it around. So we're going to get to that in a few minutes, and I'm really excited because you've got loads of experience as an entrepreneur. You work at an amazing company like Infinitus. You know so many cool people through the podcast, just through being, you and yourself. But first, I'm hoping you're going to explain a little bit more about you and yourself, because not everyone will know who Scott Oldford is. So just tell us a tale or two about who you are and what it is that you do each and every day.
Sure. So, my main job, the main thing that I do every day, and that I'm very passionate about, is helping businesses when it comes to strategy and marketing and technology. Really, when I look at what I do, I'm a connector. So I connect people together, and I absolutely love doing that. And I've made an absolutely very interesting business out of it. So, my story that leads up to this, when I was 7, I had my first business, was selling eggs. Very interesting business looking back at it. By the time I was 16, I was successful per se. Then things went well for 5, 6, yeah, about until I was 18, 19. And then, as very much the title of your book, definitely made some mistakes, and there was definitely a lot of me that needed to change in order to be the proper successful person and mindset and these types of things. So I failed 3 times in a row, which never feels good by any stretch of imagination, and lost pretty much everything I had. And last year, so this is September, so last June, I had $750,000 in debt. And this wasn't investor debt. This was actually tied to my parents' house. And so that was very much then. And I just had, and I'm sure we'll get into this, just had this mindset of wanting to fulfill my potential, because I had all this potential and I felt like I wasted it. And I felt like I wasn't living up to the person that I really could be. And so then I was just obsessed about helping other people and delivering value to other people. And I stumbled across, of course, I had the things that we do, I'm very, very well versed in. I've been working in them for 10, 12 years. And so it allowed me to work with very exciting people, very exciting organizations and companies to help them grow and help them pass their obstacles. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. And it's been a lot more exciting than I was expecting. It's a lot more interesting and fun than I was expecting. And it was a lot more profitable than I was really expecting at the end of the day. I get to work from home. I get to have a team completely co-located across the world. I get to work with, really my best friends. We work our clients. It's kind of like, if I wouldn't be able to go on a cruise with them for 7 days, I don't want them as a client. And we do some really, really cool work. So it's a cool place to be. And now I'm fast forward, I guess, 15 years. I'm 23, and I love it. I mean, one of those places where I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love the people that are around me, and it's very much of a lifestyle business. I can wear my shirtless shirt and nobody really cares. I can show up to a meeting in my PJs and it's not the end of the world. And being able to do that is extraordinary at the end of the day.
The ultimate freedom to be able to, work. As every guy I'm sure can appreciate right now, if you were able to work in your boxer shorts, that is pretty much the dream come true. That is the ultimate freedom that we all want. And I was actually just speaking to Omar and Nicole at the $100 MBA podcast. And one of the things that came up was the fact that when you fail, it makes you angry and frustrated and really determined to kind of turn things around. And you obviously having failed 3 times, it will have just given you that drive to I don't want to be here again. I want to fulfill my potential. and I want to, make differences that only I can make.
Yeah, yeah. And And you know what the really funny thing is when I was going through all that, I wasn't really considering them as failures. It was more of this is what's in front of me right now. So that's really been my that's been my past, and I've had these failures, and it's been very very interesting going through it. Having very limited resources makes you very creative, and I believe the difference is you need to go from when you're in that mindset, you're in a scarcity mindset compared to a larger, how can I help my community? How can I serve the people around me? And I believe when that clicks and you go from being what's in it for me to what's in it for the people that are around me, things start becoming successful pretty fast. Because when you help people like that and you don't expect anything in return, but rather you believe that the universe is going to it's going to come back from the universe, it's pretty powerful stuff. And that's pretty much what happened. It was, I had an ego, and the ego very much died quickly, and humbleness came after 3 years of failing. And all these different lessons that I learned about money and learned about operations and learned about people and all these sorts of things, if it wasn't for the fact that I went through this mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, failure after failure after failure, I would be not a very nice person now. I would be a bad business person. And I would fail in a way that I probably couldn't even recover maybe 10 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that I failed. And one of the biggest things that we are as entrepreneurs have a problem with sometimes is that we can't let go of those failures, and we don't talk about them, and we use them as anchors. We use them as really we let it define us, and that's something I'm trying right now to let go of, is not letting it define me, and rather letting what defines me be the value that I add to the people that are around me, whether it's helping them grow their company, whether it's helping them solve problems, whether it's whatever it is, and allowing that value to be the thing that I'm really defined by.
No, I love it. I totally agree. And one of the keywords that I sort of take from that is that idea of mistakes and failure. It does humble you, and sometimes we need that to kind of get us down to earth and back on the straight and now. So I've got to say, I'm really intrigued to hear it. So let's pass it straight over to you again, so you can tell us about this mistake. You've talked about having a few failures and a few mistakes. So I'm intrigued to hear about the story you're going to tell us and how it's led you to now.
Yeah, sure. So when I was 10, 11, I started programming. Actually, a little bit before that, I started programming. And then, there's somebody on the internet. And they were like, "Here's $600. I need this built." I was like, "Hey, well, I can do it." And 4 years later, I got about 30 programmers working for me, and I'm only 15 or 16. And again, these were all contractors. They were all over the world. It was, to be honest, very insane. And it was very interesting. And for the next, when I was 16, I got recognized, because the other crazy thing is that nobody actually knew. Nobody actually knew anything about it. Two, I didn't even know what I was doing. Okay. Uh, and by what I'm not doing, meaning I had all this excess money and I had no idea that it was any different than any other kid. So that was those were two interesting things. So one day I got discovered, per se, and I went on to win, I don't know, 11 awards, 12 awards, I don't know, 14 awards in like 2 years. That wasn't a good thing. And that was when you have so many people telling you at a young age, you're great, you're going to believe that great. And I think it's fine to believe that that you're good at something, but I think it's a disadvantage to believe that you're the best at something when you're really not. And it made me cocky, it made me egotistical, it made me very not very altruistic, and it really created a monster at the end of the day. It was Scott Oldford, the monster, that was very me. and business was still going well. I was running a web development company at the time, and that was a little bit of a different focus. And so I put some, put some money into investments. I had myself stretched really thin. And over the next few years, I won't go into the specific businesses themselves, but there's a few things that I learned. One of the biggest lessons is that you can burn money really quickly, and if you don't have a big enough runway, then you're screwed. Two is that it doesn't matter how life experiences you had when you're in business. The first 5 years, you're really naive. You don't really know how the world works. Three is that we cannot be good at everything. I'm personally not good at managing people. I was never really good at culture management. I did just stupid shit that 18 and 19-year-olds do, but on a different level, right? Like not giving people Thanksgiving off, stupid shit that I just look back, wow, how did I even get as far as I was? So I learned all these different lessons. I lost a considerable amount of money on the first thing, the first startup that I was trying to start. I lost almost the same amount of money on the second one, and by the third, I was just racking up debt, right? And of course, when you have an excess of money, you also have the ability to get a lot more credit than a typical person. Typical person can get $50,000, $100,000 of credit. And if they blow that, like $50,000, $100,000, at least to me, from a relative scale, it's not a huge amount of money. But when you can rack up, $1 million of debt, that's tough. So I sold my company out, and I was acqui-hired essentially. And that day, the first day I stepped in there, was the day I figured that I'm not employable. And over the next year and a half, it was probably my lowest point from an emotional level. It was definitely my lowest point of productivity and believing in myself, my confidence levels, and all these types of things. Because, you look from being extremely successful in your own eyes to being a complete failure in your own eyes. It's like, what did I do? What did I screw up so badly that I'm here? And so I had the absolute opportunity, and I have no idea how this happened right to this day, but I got to win the American Express Innovator Award. Again, I think it was just like the universe is kicking the butt, being like, all right, we've trampled you down enough. And so I went down. It was a 3-day experience in Toronto, and it was just other young entrepreneurs. And I came back from that. That was a Thursday. I came back. I left, with my middle fingers behind my back on Friday when I got back here at the business. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So I had $600 in my bank account, credit card with $10,000 on it, like available credit. And with that, it allowed me to get out of $750,000 of debt. And the road has been interesting. There's a lot of things I've done differently. I planned a lot better this time around. The way I created my team was by, giving as much transparency, and I was in my approach. Now it's about helping people instead of trying to help myself. It's about trying to help people regardless if they're a customer or not. It's just the fact that I love to have people around me that I can help. And our entire company is profit shared 40%. Our team are co-located around the world, and they're the best people. They're my family at the end of the day, and I hired the right people. And it's been I took all of the things that I learned beforehand. I took the business model that I was using when I was 14, because essentially what happened is I'm like 18 years old, and I see everybody else doing these different things. And of course, I'm thinking, hey, well, they look successful, so let's go try their business model. Well, that was the wrong idea, because I didn't know how that business model worked. I knew how my own business model worked. So I used the same business model, which means contractors all over the world. We can scale up and down as we need it. Everyone's profit shared, these different types of things. And, we're only turning a year old next week, October the 1st. And, it's been a very wild ride. I've learned a lot, and I've really invested in two things, which were relationships and knowledge, solely due to the fact that no one can take those things away from me. They can, if things go badly, if things go whatever it would be in the future, the two things I can't take away from me is my relationships and the knowledge that I've learned. And that's why I invest so heavily and spend so much time connecting with people and helping people and allowing myself to be furthered. And I think that that's something that everybody needs to do, because when times are easy, when times are good, you need to prepare for when times aren't going to be good. Because if you're living the life of an entrepreneur, it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and you're just along for the ride. And if you don't prepare yourself and you don't put the handlebars down right on the way down, you're going to fall in.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I don't care what kind of industry you're in, online, offline, whatever. We're all in a people business, and it's not just for people.
Yeah.
Like your customers and the relationships you have with customers and suppliers and clients and that kind of thing. But it's just how you treat people. It's how you treat your friends and your fellow entrepreneur and all these kind of things. And I remember interviewing Dan Miller, who went through a kind of similar thing, lost his company, and he had a similar friend who happened at a similar time, and his friend had burned a lot of bridges and really, really struggled, whereas Dan had focused so much time on building relationships, and he was able to rise from the ashes. And it is, if you're able to, focus on selfless acts, help people, focus on, individuals, then that will get you through the good times, bad times, and every in between times. And I suppose some people will be sat at home thinking, oh, well, this is just, the kind of mistake that some dumb kid's going to make. You give a 15, 16-year-old a bunch of money, you're going to make dumb decisions. I mean, everyone does. You see it with movie stars, singers, sports stars. Who isn't a bit of an idiot at that age? We all.
Yeah, completely.
But as an entrepreneur, our goal always is we want to, whether it's we want to earn a lot of money or fame or, just become an authority figure. We all want to get to that pinnacle. We want to become, the best we can possibly be. And as soon as we start believing our own hype, I don't care whether you're doing that at the age of 17 or, 57. That is a dangerous road that you're going to be taking down.
Yeah, you know what? It's the road untraveled for a reason. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's definitely not what people believe it is. It's not. Entrepreneurs have a lot of freedom, but there's also a lot of stress. There's a lot of risk. You don't know if you're going to be eating steaks or noodles. You don't know if if you have a family, you don't even know if you're going to be able to provide for them. There's all these different things that you need to be worrying about. And you also have to be delusional, right? Like you have to have the mindset of a 4-year-old that anything's possible. And I only believe that 1% of the population is willing and can put that much effort and are okay with the risk and do all these things, and then 99% will work for that 1%. So, and I don't know, I still don't know if you're born an entrepreneur. I don't know if you're thrust into being an entrepreneur. I have a theory that everyone's an entrepreneur, and essentially society screws them over, and by the time they're 20 years old, they're no longer an entrepreneur, right? Because if you give every kid lemonade and tell them to sell it, they'll sell it, right? So, that's definitely a discussion I always am interested in, because we raise kids to be successful, per se, or we try to be successful. We give them all these job options. The one job option we don't give them is the one that allows them to live the life that they design and the life that they want. I'm very thankful and I'm very grateful that I can live the life I do. And while there's still more that I definitely want to do, and I only feel like I'm at the bottom of the roller coaster going up right now. But although there's lots that I want to do, my life and my quality of life is extraordinary. There's a lot of risk, a lot of headaches, a lot of time. And if you're up for, working 110 hours a week and not even thinking about it, then be an entrepreneur. If you want to 50 hours a week and have a great relationship and, have friends and everything else, And there's seasons, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to work your ass off for about 15 years in order to get really where you want to be. And if you're not ready for that commitment, then go do something else. That's the best advice I have. If you're not ready to commit, go do something else. Because until you work 110 hours a week, until your fiance breaks up with you, until all these things happen, I don't believe that most people achieve success. People get to a point where it hurts and they won't keep going. And pain, essentially it's just a feeling of weakness and or exiting your body. And that's the point where most people stop. And if you stop at that point, I mean, there's multiple times I could have stopped, but instead I kept going and kept going. You gotta have resilience, persistence, and just this stupid vision in your mind that you're gonna get there, and you're gonna whatever it takes, you're gonna do.
It is. It does very much feel like an addiction at time where,
Oh, it's totally
it's crazy. Yeah.
just like being addicted to heroin or something, right?
Yeah.
Right? There's that internal need of always on, always working, always forwarding, and it sucks. Like being an entrepreneur blows, right? Like there's no two way. James Altucher puts it perfectly. Like being an entrepreneur sucks. No idea why people want to do it. Why am I an entrepreneur? One, I'm unemployable. Two, I effing love it. And three, I get to have the exact life that I developed, and I get to make the change in the world that I want to make. And there's no other option for me. I absolutely love it. I thrive off of it. I love working 100 hours a week. It's so much fun. But there's also seasons, right? 3 years from now, 5 years from now, I'll likely be able to go for 3 months and just forget about everything. And most people won't ever be able to do that. So it's about thinking in the mindset of doing what no one else will do so that you can live a way that no one else can.
No, I like that. I like that. The way you put that. And I just want to take it back to, the relationship side of things. Because I imagine when you were in this dark period and you were egotistical, did you burn a lot of bridges? Did you kind of ultimately
Oh
sabotage
yeah,
a lot of friendships?
yeah. Oh, totally.
Because
I
now you're in a
screw.
position where you kind of take this selfless approach and it's all about building relationships. But I'm guessing then it was like a complete opposite.
Yeah, you know what? When you're in the scarcity mindset, you burn bridges a lot faster than when you're in the abundance mindset. Thankfully, I've been able to have the opportunity to build majority of those relationships back. Um, Thankfully, people forgive you.
Yeah,
That's all I
really
can say
do.
there. People
Yeah.
people forgive you, and when you actually tell people the authentic, real story, and you tell them what was actually going on compared to what they thought was going on, because a lot of people thought I was just effing them over, right? A lot of people thought I was just on an ego chair, and I was just effing them over. And when they actually knew the story, when I actually released my story, people were very understanding, right? It's like, okay, yeah, hey, you screwed up, and now you've hit your flow. You know what you're doing, and hopefully you don't do it again. But I don't believe that most bridges you can repair, right? It takes time, it takes a bit of motivation to do it. You got to do it for the right reason. But I believe it can be done, right? There's no relationships I can think of right now. There's a few that are, still rocky, but there's nothing that's not repairable. And when you focus on anything, you can get the result that you want.
But it's just an interesting mindset because obviously you've kind of gone from, the bottom where it was a more sort of selfish outlook to this selfless one. And I just find that very interesting how, you go through that journey and at the end it's like, I now want to be a different kind of person. I want to do it a different way. And I've got an opportunity to build another business now and get myself back on top. And I can do it like in a way that I've always have. Or I can do it in a new way and just have a completely other approach to it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think about what the approach I'm doing now is I want to be happy. I want to be truthful. I want to be authentic. I want to be transparent. I don't want to be living a lie. I don't want to be doing a lot of the things that I did in the past. And admitting a lot of that stuff to yourself is not easy. Admitting that you lived a lie and you didn't not tell people, but you just left out key pieces of information and you did all these things. I don't want to live that. I don't want to live that life. I don't believe that you can be truly happy in that life. And I don't believe anybody can be truly happy if they're not being transparent with themselves, at least themselves. Because the problem with if you're not transparent with yourself, you can't be transparent with anybody else. And if you're not transparent with yourself, you go down a lot of roads that are driven by ego and pride. And when you make decisions as an entrepreneur on ego and pride, there's only so far you can go until you fail, because it's not a very good road.
No, absolutely not. And I'm guessing, Amber, you've taken a lot of lessons from this. Obviously, you've taken it in terms of building a new business, but that's the strange thing about success. It can come at any time. You're building a thriving business now. You have some amazing connections and friends, people who are, of various levels of success. And who knows where you're going to be in a year's time, 3 years' time, at any point when that tipping, point will come about, and you could just skyrocket to crazy, amazing levels. And, the risk of always kind of believing the hype and falling off the edge is going to be there, but you must be in a much stronger and more secure place, both emotionally and, I suppose, physically, to handle that now.
Yeah, it's world of difference. And just a mindset, just the mindset of looking at opportunities from an abundance perspective instead of, there's two mindsets. There's the mindset that here's a pie that has 100 pieces, and everyone else is taking the pie, and you got to get as much as you want. And you apply that to anything. Then there's the principle and the mindset, the abundance mindset, that you can just bake as many pies as you want, right? So when you're in that scarcity mindset, it's not easy to get out of, especially when you're there, especially when you don't have money in the bank, especially when you don't have these different types of things. But I think what did it for me was just jumping off a cliff and figuring out how the hell I'm going to fly, and not knowing that when I started last June, it was my last chance, right? It was either this or bankruptcy, and then I had no idea what I was going to do. It's like, I'm not employable. I've never worked a job. I don't have any university. I've never barely graduated high school. So it was my last chance. I had very limited resources, but what I did have is I had some really good people around me in terms of my team, and I just so happened to convince them that their vision aligned with my vision. And we did some really cool work. We had a couple breaks. We had a couple things being in the right place at the right time. But the reason we were in the right place at the right time is because we all worked our ass off. Didn't feel entitled. Didn't feel anything at the end of the day. It was just like, here's my goal, and I'm going to zero in and put all of my focus and all of my sweat and all of my tears on that one thing. And that's what entrepreneurs don't do. They take on side projects, they do this, they do that. You need to focus on one company, and not only do you need to focus on one company, but you need to focus on one thing in that company that you're going to put all your effort and all your exertion on. And if you can get to that point, and if you can get to that actual place of focusing on one, at the most two, then you can get to the point of being able to actually really drive success and really get to the point where you know what's happening. So yeah, that's why I think what we've done to date has worked, and it's because of focus. It's because of just stupid amount of focus and thought, and it's been amazing because there's been so many opportunities, and you just got to say no, and you got to remember that you have your eye on one thing, and we're not good at that. We like the bright light syndrome, right?
Yeah, it's so true, and focus is such a powerful tool, but like you say, entrepreneurs, creative people, people with ideas tend to not have a good grasp of that, because there's always that shiny light catching our attention. But wow, what an amazing journey you've gone through, and to obviously start at such a young age. It's the only life you knew, and you know it did go down some dark paths, but you've come up the other side and have a totally different outlook, and it's such a positive one. But I stand by the thing where, you know, that kind of believe in your own hype can happen at any time. Success can happen at any time. You never know when that blog post is going to go viral, when your product's going to, you know, appear on all the news outlets and everyone's going to want it, when that Kickstarter campaign just blows up and raises $13 million for a cooler. You know, you just never know when that kind of things happen. So believing in the hype can happen to any of us. So I suppose to wrap things up, if you just have like one piece of advice for the person who maybe is going through that now, they're having a bit more success than they imagined, or it's happened a bit quicker than they had imagined, or just to plan for when that big moment may come, what would you say to just keep them level on the ground, and like you say, keeping their eye on the ball and on that one important aspect?
Yeah, stay focused. There's two things you got to do. You got to stay focused and not let your distract. Because what happens? You have some money in the bank account. You might have some extra time because you have a team. All of these different types of things. You need to be putting that time into every last bit of time into what you're doing and what you're actively doing. So secondarily, and the other thing here is that you need to understand and you need to plan on how you're going to grow. Because growing effectively is the difference between having a company and a sustainable company. And so ask yourself the question, you know, when you're in it by the 3 year mark, you should be able to ask yourself the question. You should be able to go for a month without it crippling the company whatsoever. Right? If I turn my phone off for a month right now, I have no problem admitting that things would be pretty shitty when I came back. Yeah. And my goal is to make a sustainable company so that I can go for 3 months with turning my phone off. And I believe that everybody's goal should be in and around that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the main aim for us all, because we don't want to be, you know, confined to our business or to our work for the end of days. We want to get to a point where we can, you know, take that long overdue trip. It's like you say, seasons. You know, you work hard for 2, 3, 5, 10 years so you can then enjoy a little bit of time, because what's the point in having money and freedom if you actually have no physical freedom to go in and do anything with it? So.
Listen, man, you got it. You work in a way that nobody else will. Like I said, you work in a way that nobody else will, so you can live a life that nobody else can. And it takes, and this is the last thing I can say, it takes 15 to 20 years to be an overnight success. And right, it takes 15 to 20 years. I believe Maxwell is one that's quoted to say that. But say overnight success takes 15 to 20 years. I'm on year 13, and I'm hoping that, you know, I'm my definition of success is not financial or anything else. It's being able to do what I love every single day and not doing what I don't love. And I'm still at like a 90-10 split still. So when I'm at that 100% split is when I'll be successful. Yeah. And I think that's another thing, is that you need to define your success by what makes you happy. And happy is derived from happening. So you need to ensure that your happenings in and around what you do, and you design your life so that you are happy, and thus you are successful.
I love it, and I totally agree with defining your success, because it's different for everyone. And it does sound like you are heading on the right path, and that 100% will, you know, tick away ever so closer. So, Scott, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. What an amazing journey. And, you know, like I say, I feel this sort of thing can happen to anyone. You never know when that big successful moment's going to hit, and we could all be tainted by those bright lights. But, like you say, focus. That's the one thing. That's what separates the success to the non-success. So.
It so does. And thank you so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your book when it comes out.
And the pleasure is all mine, and you, Mr. and Mrs. Viewer, thank you ever so much for joining us too. So for me and Scott, a big cheers and peace. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for joining me on this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, and a big thanks to Scott, who's been a fantastic mentor to me. Not only is it awesome to have him part of his podcast, but part of the book, The Success Mistake too. And like I say, he's someone who is a true mentor to me, always helping me along my own personal journey, and I'm always excited to travel along his own journey too. He comes up with new ideas pretty much each week, but as I said at the beginning of his podcast, he isn't just a talker, he's a true doer. So if you want to learn how to do and be a bit more proactive and practical with your ways, he might be someone you like to follow. And I've put his links as well as to the show notes over at tdog.co/purplecoffee56. That's tdog.co/purplecoffee56. It's worth checking out, and whilst there, please consider subscribing, rating and reviewing this very podcast. It would mean an awful lot to me. But until next time, have a fantastic one, my coolest of cats. A true pleasure as always. Keep it cool. Turn dog out.